back. And whilst they're coming back, I'd just like to check, can you hear me at the back? Because the mic's not working. So that's great. Now, when you went for coffee, we left you with that sense of, okay, would you mind just talking over coffee about some of the kind of experiences that you've just had in the session? Now, as you were over coffee, the energy and the buzz of conversation is totally different to now. Now, okay, I'm the centre of attention, you've been very courteous, you've all quickly got silent. Before that, there was a buzz of energy and conversation in the room. Now, if we're going to get that sense of your energy and your values coming into the world more fully, we need to generate that kind of participation. So, what I'm going to do now, just for 5 or 10 minutes, is just to ask you if you can reflect just some of the experiences that you've had that tap into what really matters to you from this morning. And if some of you wouldn't mind just giving your responses, so it's just to get that sense of the participation now about what is beginning to really matter to us. And Sue's got a couple of roving mics, that if you wouldn't mind just actually, I know it's difficult in a room this size, but if you would just say, yeah, this is what I'm getting from it, or, this is what I'm actually feeling at the moment. So can I just ask, is there anybody that wouldn't mind just making a contribution?
I don't need a mic, I don't think. Can everybody hear me? Yeah. The question you left us with was, how can I improve my practice? I think it was interesting that we had that video clip to look at, and I think possibly the use of video and then looking at your own practice at a distance, perhaps with support of pedagogue or somebody who's thoughtful about early years, might be one way forward, where nobody's telling you what to do. And I've trained in different settings, and I do know that the point you made about how it doesn't always go back to the setting. So it's about looking at your own practice, perhaps with colleagues as well, and that's peer assessment, peer observation in a non-judgmental kind of way. So you can look at your own practice, but also I think coupled with that is being thoughtful and thinking and reading about early years, so you've got a basis, a foundation of some theory that you can match what you're doing to. So that's a bit complicated, isn't it?
It is, but that is so really important. But what we don't know how to do is to bring your story and then share that so that your influence can be felt more widely. And that's exactly what it is that we're actually hoping, that out of our work and the work today, we can stimulate exactly that kind of insight, but with a passion and a commitment to actually work with us collaboratively to do exactly what you're saying. So that's great. Any more reflections or thoughts that you'd be willing to share? So thanks for starting us up. Any others? It'd be nice if you could just say your name and perhaps
Faith Fletcher, early years lecturer at Hope. I think that improving practice, I need to do that in a place where I'm comfortable with the people around me. And picking up on what Yvonne said about a non-judgmental environment, to admit that I've had a bad day or a bad session or a bad lesson, and it not to reflect on me as perhaps being a poor practitioner. So being able to reflect honestly, in some ways safe, and know that judgment, that the mud is not going to stick. And so I think it has to start within the settings in creating that culture of trust between practitioners, and that the goal is about improving practice for the children rather than it be about somebody's performance. And that being linked to things like the position within the setting and pay, which is all part of the same package.
Again, it's those insights which are really crucial and that we want now. Yes? to get some, just one or two more before we move on. So would you please?
I'm Jenny. I work in education and I'm a PhD student. And I'm sitting here looking at this, and it's just striking me for the first time, and it feels very obvious, but only I can improve my practice. But a lot of it, sort of training is set up as if somebody else can or a book can. So there is that sense of only I can do that. At the same time, I don't need to do that alone. And reflecting back on the video, the early years practitioner was learning from that little girl, as the little girl was learning from the early years practitioner. And so the two of them were forming a learning community together. And there's that, what I'd like to see is more recognition of the role that the little girl is playing, as well as, and there's like two things going on together.
Yeah, no. Actually, if you look around the room, I think you should be much more powerful than you are. And one of the reasons that you're not, it's unfortunate, but women traditionally have allowed themselves. You know, the male dominance has been very great. And as you talk together, that point about safety, which often wouldn't come up in a male-dominated context, is really significant. That building of the trust, that sense of the relational qualities, like with the 2-year-old. Actually, Emma is learning with the 2-year-old, as the 2-year-old is learning with Emma. Now, it's that insight we need to develop more powerfully. Any other responses that you feel you wouldn't mind just sharing? Because the ones we've had are ones that we can actually reflect on, and I do believe we'll use those to take ourselves forward. Any others that you're feeling, yes, you wouldn't mind just sharing? Any?
My personal feeling from watching the video, I mean, I've worked as an early years practitioner before I went to do the degree, and from watching the video, some of the constraints for me to improve my practice are coming from the management that sits in an office that don't actually have the day-to-day interaction with the children, and the time constraints they put onto things, like you must do this in this amount of time, and going back and saying, no, we need more time to do this, we need to alter that, and then nothing gets done about it. We stay in the same rut. I think it's about getting those to work as well.
And again, you raised that vital issue of engaging with what are the political, sometimes the economic structures, the cultures which we're in, which can be constrained. And we have got to understand those. And somebody mentioned about the reading and the ideas, and this is why sometimes the ideas of others can help us to understand why we are in these contexts. Like in Liverpool, you were hit more seriously than any other authority in the country with the economic cuts. You know, and we've got to understand that this is the reality, and yet continue to live the values of that sense of the relational quality, the trust, that inquiry that we can do together. So again, you're each bringing up really crucial areas for us to think about, reflect on, but not to let it get in the way of. Just think of the power in this room. And, you know, as you were talking earlier, the energy and the passion that you have for early years education. Now, this is what we need to understand, how to spread your influence more widely. And we don't understand yet how to do it, and I'm hoping during the rest of the day we can get closer to it. Okay, and at some point, you know, I'll be asking again for some of your participation, and many thanks for those people that have contributed, because I know it's not difficult in this context, so thank you. Ready to do that?
So, Catherine, we've heard from everybody in the audience, including practice. But if we go back to what we were talking about before and the story, I'd like to ask you what you think.
Well, if you'd asked me that question a year ago, I would have said that upskilling the workforce is the most important thing we can offer people who are training in early years. But actually, I don't think that anymore.
Okay, so why don't you think that now?
Well, I guess that after doing part of the collaborative inquiry, I realise it really isn't that simple. Many people who attend training courses feel they're treated as empty vessels. It is assumed they don't have the knowledge, and the trainer is there to give it to them. Courses often include a lot of rhetoric. It's important to be flexible, caring, competent, as if we didn't know that already. But what that means for an individual in a particular work setting
and how they'll deal with challenges that make it difficult for them to implement in their particular organisational context are not issues that are generally addressed on courses. And yet people are expected to go back to the work setting and implement what they've heard. But the psychology of human nature is that learning does not happen as simply as this, which means that, as Janice said at the beginning, lots get spent on training, but it has little, if any, impact on practice.
Learning to do your job well, either as an educator or as a carer, or as both in the case of early years practitioners, involves much more than attending courses which tells them about good practice. That is a very superficial form of learning. It does not pay any attention to the individuality of the practitioner or manager.
Okay, so Catherine, what makes this inquiry different?
Well, in this collaborative inquiry, the uniqueness of the practitioner is important, but so also is the community of practice that the group of practitioners create as they meet together on a regular basis and share ideas and learning. The individual is encouraged to reflect on what matters to them, what their values are, how they want to make a difference to the children they work with, and ask themselves, what do I do well, and how can I improve what I do? And over time to develop their own dynamic and unique living theories about what their values-based practice is. Every child needs to feel that there are adults who care about them as individuals, but every adult needs that too, just like you do, Bernie. It doesn't matter what position you're in and what job you do. They need to feel valued. They need to feel empowered to use their unique gifts and their abilities in the best possible way in the work that they do. If a person is encouraged to feel like this, then they are more likely to feel motivated, energised, and use their own talents and initiative in ways that are in the best interests of the children that they care for. The good leader or manager will be aware of the individuality and the value of each member of their staff and will provide the conditions that will support the confidence and flourishing of that individual. But leaders and managers need to develop a very sophisticated set of empathic and felicitative skills to enable this to happen in the best possible way.
So what you're saying really is applicable to many work settings. But again, the question is, so how does the inquiry help this?
Because it's this process that the collaborative inquiry seeks to encourage and foster. It allows each person, whether practitioner or manager, the space to reflect on why they are chosen to do the job that they do, what their values are, what does really matter to them, what they want to achieve in their working life, and to share it with others. What the past year has shown us is that when people share those reflections in a group setting and listen to the reflections of others, the effect can be very powerful. It is transformational. There is a shift in feeling and thinking that can be deep and profound. It is this shift that many people on the collaborative inquiry have experienced, a change in mindset, which then has an impact on how they behave in their workplace on a moment-by-moment basis. When we as individuals get to that point, we are then knowledgeable and confident in who we are and what we are doing. Then the next stage is for us to select that development, what development opportunities they need to support them, and increasing their wisdom and their expertise in their role. Training courses can be shaped and facilitated in ways that continue to build on the collaborative learning principles and enhance the experience of belonging to a community of practice. They are then more likely to contribute to a continuing improvement in the practice of the professional educator and carer.
Okay, so I'm beginning to see that the process of embedding transformational change into the workplace is much more complex than just asking people to attend a training program. And I realise that to change mindsets, that can't happen overnight. But really, I suppose now at this point, we need to hear about the impact that this has had on the practitioners.
Bernie, no problem with that at all. Well, of course, as this approach is grounded in the experience of the individual practitioners, each person, of course, has responded in different ways, depending on where their starting points were. And I'm sure that the response to that question would differ according to which professional group who was involved in the process. But through the collaborative inquiry, we have realised that a huge issue in early years settings has been the lack of confidence in a large number of fantastic practitioners. often carried over from a lack of confidence in their own childhoods, but also from the fact that they belong to a profession that is not valued by a wider society, and hence, how can you value yourself?
So, what are the implications of this?
Well, it's taken a long time for a number of the group members to really believe that what they do is significant and that they have anything of value to say to anyone outside the work setting. But now, each of those people recognise that they are important. They all have something valuable and unique to offer. And this, in many cases, has created a shift in how they see their work. They understand that they can be proactive and influential in what they do. For example, I have a video here of 3 practitioners who a year ago would never have thought it was possible that they would be able to speak on video. Just listen to what they have to say for a few moments.